Alrighty. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for our fourth and our last difficult decision panel series. I'm Neetu, the Care Services Coordinator, and I'll be your moderator for today. Today's difficult decision panel series will specifically focus on caregiving for ALS patients, and you will learn about this from our caregivers who work directly with taking care of their loved ones. So now, without further ado, I will actually allow them to introduce themselves real quick, and we'll start with AJ.
Hi, I'm AJ Kelleher. My husband had ALS for over 7 years. I was the primary caregiver for him during that time. And we did receive help from other folks, but I took care of the majority of what he needed, and did actually find ways to solicit help from other folks and tried to find ways to take care of myself, although it's difficult.
Thank you so much, AJ. Next, we'll go on to Miss Riley.
Hi, I'm Carmelita Riley, and I currently am the caregiver for my son, Antonio Briggs, and I do have an outside source that I use as well, but basically I am the main caregiver for him. And that's it.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Thank you, Ms. Riley.
Yes.
And next we'll go on to Mr. Lancaster.
Hi, I'm Paul Lancaster, and for the last 2 years, because of the virus, I've been the main caregiver for my wife. She's had ALS now for 16 years, being diagnosed in 2005. We had a caregiver several prior to that, the pandemic. Right now, we haven't brought anyone back because of the resurgence, but eventually I'll bring someone back because we have long-term care.
Lancaster. And next we'll go on to Mr. Greenfield.
Hi, this is Wilbert. I am ALS. I have ALS for about 16 years, and I'm from Washington, D.C. Yeah, I have several caregivers that I've used in the past, and they continue helping me while I'm living in the nursing home right now.
Thank you so much, Wilbert. And as always, if you guys have any questions that come up, you're more than welcome to share them in the chat window and also the Q&A at the bottom. And with that, we'll actually start out with a few questions we've received ahead of time. And I think, Carmelita, this may be a great question for you because someone's asking about what does caregiving situation currently look like, and what is the process of enrolling into a waiver program?
Okay, currently we are in the EPD waiver program through DC because we're in DC and they have that availability for us, which is awesome. But with that, oh Lord, with that program, I'm sorry, my phone, somebody just called, I cleared them out. I better text them. My sister, which is my helper. Anyway, we have an agency that we do use as well, and they're okay. They do supply, supply staff to us. It's supposed to be 24 hours, but it never pans out to be 24 hours because a lot of times we still cover a lot of shifts. And that's due to the fact that my son, he's 47, and he is very particular. For one, he's very in tune to what's going on with him. He does not just allow them to just care for him any kind of way. And the type of staffing that we have, and it seems like I can't get away from that type of staffing. They tend to want to do things their way. And when he's actually trying to help them, and also to help them to better take care of him and to save their bodies. Because of what they've been told evidently, and there's definitely not no training, because everyone that's come to our home, we have had to train. And how we got our training basically when we brought him home from a facility. Before they would release him from the facility, we had to do a 2 to 3 day training. And what they didn't show us, he was able to teach us how to train him verbally, because he can talk. He has a trach, but he can talk. Nothing's wrong with his brain. He's just immobile. And so, and that's how we learned. So therefore, every time we turn around, there's somebody new, and it's been coming in. It's been going on for the last 2 years, because he had been in facilities from 2014 up until we went and got him 2018, 2019. January 2019, we went and got him from the facility and brought him home, because he really wasn't getting the care there that he actually needed as well. So, and that's why we brought him home, and then decided to use a home health care agency to assist us with taking care of him. But like I said, the majority of the time, a lot of it with the companies that I'm using currently, there's a lot of times we don't have the coverage, and they're supposed to supply 24-hour coverage. So that's what we're experiencing now. And I've called around to several other agencies to try to see if we can acquire a new company, but a lot of them not taking 24-hour care, or they're not taking new clients, or they are not want to deal with a person that needs that much attention that he is requiring. So that's where we are with that now. And we've been doing this, like I say, he was diagnosed in 2010, but we've been home taking care of him since we brought him back. It had January 2019. So it's this January was 2 years. So yeah, January 21 was 2 years. Mm-hmm. And it's been a ride. It's been a ride. So I'm sure everybody else can understand too. And what we're going to do, we're not going to let our loved ones lie. So therefore we jump in and we do what we have to do and make sure they get the best care that they need. Mm-hmm. Even during COVID, surprisingly enough, they were able to still send, and we allowed, because we had to make sure that they had been COVID tested and so forth like that before the vaccine came out and so forth. And that we were very particular about things when they come into the home, when they walk in the door. I had disinfectant spray that they had to spray themselves down with, had a sanitizer, mask, even things to cover their shoes or their feet if they wanted to take the shoes off, and all these things, and they have to wash their hands. And so, of course, there were some that was very cooperative, and there were some that were, kind of rejecting that because I guess they felt that they were clean or whatever. But I had to tell them, you are not vaccinated yet, because they hadn't even done the vaccination. You're not vaccinated. Can you just follow the rules? It's been, like I said, it's been a journey, and it's very interesting to me just to see how home health care actually is. And I'm very disappointed at a lot of it, because I had nurses in my family. Sorry if I'm taking too much time. Had people in my family that were in the medical field with nursing and so forth like years ago, but they're all either deceased now or they're too old, to do it. And he requires lifting. And I was just amazed to see the difference in prior to the people that we had in our family that did this type of work, and then what we're receiving now. It just blows my mind. It really blows my mind. And if you can get enough family help, I would recommend it, versus having outsiders come in. Even if they're not family, they're close friends or someone that has been recommended to you to use, that has the experience. I think that's a good idea, because some of these agencies, some people find good ones, but like I was told by one of my coworkers who have a child is disabled, and they have an agency, helping them, but they only give them 8 hours. They don't get the 24-hour service, and they request more hours, but has not happened. But they have they said they've gone through so many agencies, and finally they have gotten one that accommodates the way they need accommodating, for their loved one. So it's definitely an experience, and it takes a lot of patience. It really does. And a lot of love, of course, for your loved one to even go the extra mile to even make sure that they're getting what they need. So That's it.
Thank you. And we'd also like to hear everyone, AJ, Mr. Lancaster,
Lancaster.
Wilbur. We'd like to hear about your different experience on how and when did you decide it was time to bring in additional help. And we can start with you, AJ.
Okay, great. So early on, my husband was still, somewhat mobile, but he became immobile after a couple of years. And we were in the fortunate position where I was able to, I say early retire from work, but I was able to quit working. He did have some Virginia retirement was invested in that. And then of course there's the Medicare disability where you get a little bit of money. But we had, arranged our finances so that I didn't have to work. So I was able to make the decision to be his full-time caregiver at that point. And early on, he was 45 when he was diagnosed. I was around the same age. So I was young enough and fit enough. I felt like I could take care of him. I will say after over, 6 years, it had started to wear on me a little bit. And obviously the needs had gotten greater. But we were very fortunate because early on, our church family kind of took us under their wing. There had been a gentleman in our church who had passed away from ALS maybe a couple years before my husband. And they had, and I'm not sure if it was their idea or who came up with the idea, but they found a book called Share the Care. I wrote down the name. I think it's by someone named Cappy Capelosilla. Anyway, they had read that book and it basically laid out a process of how you can organize a large group of people to help provide care for somebody. And that doesn't put the burden on just any one or two people to do everything for you. And you can kind of have it be whatever ends up helping you. So we held off for a few years, but we probably started using that in about maybe year 3 of his diagnosis. We had people from the church who signed up and brought meals originally for both of us 3 times a week when my husband was still able to eat. When he was no longer able to eat and got on the feeding tube, we had people bringing meals just for me 3 times a week. And I'm telling you, the church did that for probably, it was church and friends and family, did that for probably 5 years, which was very humbling and very difficult to have that many people, coming into your home. We had a lot of people we'd never met before. Again, church community, that's what, one of the things church is all about is just helping their members, even if they've never met them. Other things that we did is I also had the fortune of my husband being a firefighter, and the fire department did a lot to help us out. They basically took over the yard work. Them and a couple of other friends, kept the grass cut and, weeded and, things like that. And then we also, some of the other services that people helped us with were tried having somebody come in and clean the house, but I decided I'd rather not have the house clean because it was just kind of an inconvenience to have people coming in and asking 20 million questions and cleaning things differently than what I was used to. But every now and then I got a deep cleaning from some friends. And the other thing that I did early on is I wanted my husband to have range of motion to help him stay limber, and it helped cut down on the amount of pain that he would start feeling as it progressed due to constrictures of the muscles. And that made it easier to care for him, that he wasn't in pain, and I was able to move him a little bit better to get him dressed and things like that. We actually had a nurses ministry at our church, and I asked them if they'd be willing to help out, and ended up with 5 ladies who again, for about 5 years or more, came into the house. They took turns 3 times a week. Somebody would come in and just sit with Jeff and, move him around and talk to him. And they got, so they loved him. And, again, very humbling for them to come in, because I think I only knew one of them a little bit before, we started getting the help. But they got so that they enjoyed it so much, they kind of fought over who got to come and hang out with Jeff. So the earlier you can get somebody in and forming those relationships, the easier it is for both the person helping to want to continue to help and my husband, because his level of comfort with those folks got a lot higher. And something that Miss Riley said that was so critical is that, as you all know, that the more you progress in ALS, the less control you have over things. So obviously, the quality of your care is something that you want to maintain control of as someone with ALS. And so, and my husband was not able to speak towards the end. So getting somebody in earlier who could get to know him when he was still able to talk a little bit, they got used to reading his face and his eyes. And that's where a lot of the discomfort comes in with people with ALS, having somebody new come into the house, because it is hard to, it takes energy. Even if you can still talk, it takes energy to explain what it is you need. So again, I just encourage folks as early as you can, getting people to come into the house, even if it's to sit down and read a book or watch a movie, or not even provide care, but just to form that relationship and get used to how your loved one ends up communicating, if that's something that gets more difficult for them to do. So there's also, I'll mention this and then I'll turn it over and let Mr. Lancaster talk, but the Share the Care was something that I asked someone else to organize because I didn't have the time to do that. So basically they, went out and looked for people who wanted to help. They coordinated the schedule of who was going to bring the meals, and there's all kinds of online, meal programs, sign up programs you can do. But also on the ALS website, there's something called Care Connection. And I know some of our care services coordinators have mentioned that, maybe provide some high level, training or overview on what that is. But basically it's a way just to help you organize the people that want to help you. And if that's something that people, are interested in, I'm sure the ALS Association staff, somebody could, give a little demo on that at some point too. But I just, again, I'll stop talking and after saying, I just highly encourage you to bring help in as soon as you can and to get creative in who that help is.
Can I say something before you go to the next person? I'm sorry to interject, but you made a good point with getting help and bringing someone in, because that does help you as well. It gave you time to just regroup,
Exactly.
to relax a little bit, to do things that you can't do when you're caring for your loved one. And it's always, if they don't even come but 2 or 3 hours a day, that's 2 or 3 hours that you have to just sit back, put your feet up, take a long soak or whatever you want to do, go get a massage or something, because it's needed. You need it because you end up wearing yourself down, trying to care for your loved one. And you're doing it out of love because that's your family. That's your person that you love. And it's not that you're trying to neglect yourself, but there does come times when you really are neglecting yourself and you're wearing your body down and you need to regroup. So I'm sorry, but I heard you say that. I said, that sounds really good with the Share Care program. I've never heard of that. And I guess it was never brought to my attention is because my family and I are very close knit. And my sister thinks she's her son as well. So she, oh my God, she jumps in, when she can. She lives a little far from us, but she takes the time and put forth the effort to come when she can. And that, it's very appreciative. And so that's what I'm saying. I'm glad I heard you say Share the Care. And that's something I'll think about too, but it's encouraging to know that you have someone that can come and give you 2 hours to 3 hours. So you could look for your, take care of yourself. So thank you.
Good point, because that's what this panel is about, right?
Yes,
Just figure out how to take care of each other.
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, thank you, AJ and Miss Riley. Next, we will go to Mr. Lancaster. Can you tell us about how and when did you decide when it was time to bring in additional help?
Yeah, our story is a little bit different. We lived in Florida when she was diagnosed at Mayo Clinic. And for the first 5 years, she was mobile. She didn't have, she had some problems. In fact, we even went to Hawaii, I think the second year you were diagnosed. She's hiding over here. When we moved back to Maryland to be around our children, I guess at that point she'd had it for about 5 years. And my daughter wasn't working at the time, so she was able to come in every day. Now, we had long-term care, because she worked for the federal government, and we took that out. So long-term care paid for our providers. After my daughter went to work, we asked around to friends and, et cetera, to find people. And we found, a person who worked with us for 2 years. Then it started, not to work as well. She wanted to control and become a part of the family, which she wasn't. She was a hired helper, and she wanted, control. So we let her go, and then I got my daughter-in-law, and she worked for about a year, and she went to work. Then we got a lady from church, and yeah, that didn't work as well. Then we ran into a friend of ours who came to visit us, and she said she wasn't working, and so we asked her if she wanted to come help, and she said yes. The problem is she lives over, I guess, an hour and a half away, and she's not young, but she worked for 4 years. When the pandemic came up, we told her to go home, and we have not brought her back yet, because of the resurgence. So we're waiting to see, and we still have some long-term care left. Now, we had a choice. We could have gone to an agency and hired an agency, but the cost would have been double. And normally they said you can only use, the average person uses long-term care for 3 years before they expire or run out of money. Now, we've been using it for 10 years, no, 12 years, because we hired our own. If you hire your own person, you set the price. Long-term care wanted us to pay $12 an hour. We decided to pay 13 cents. When you go through long-term care, you have to send them the driver's license and all the information, and then they take out, federal tax and state tax and Medicare tax. So we pay the extra dollar to help them out. So, that's been our experience. Now, when we bring them back, since I've been doing this for 2 years by myself, I think we are only going to bring them back for 3 days a week, 4 to 5 hours, because most of them don't cook for us. The last lady we had, our friend is from Jamaica, and she wants to cook all the Jamaican food, which gets a little old at times. So I do all the cooking mostly. And so, we'll bring somebody back. It'll give me a break until our money runs out, and then I'll have to hire someone and pay myself. But it's good to be able to take a break. I mean, I love my wife. We've been married for, this year is 57 years. So we've been together forever. But, I need a break once in a while. And she can do, I mean, she's in a wheelchair, but she can do a lot of things for herself. She can eat, she can talk, but her voice drops real low, and I have to constantly ask her what she's saying. Now, she gets mad when people will say she's talking, and they say, oh, yeah. And she said, I just asked you a question. You didn't, don't do that. It's frustrating to her. If you don't understand, ask. But it's been a journey. I mean, it's 16 years now. When she was first diagnosed, they told her at Mayo Clinic, go home and get your affairs together, because you're going to live 3 to 5 years. Now, but the good Lord said it's not her time. I said the Lord don't want you up there. That's what. But so we, that's been our experience.
You can come join in with me too, Paul.
Yeah, and Will's had it for about 16 years.
Yes. Hey, Mr. Lancaster, how are you?
Okay, how you doing, Will?
Great. Okay. Turn my video on. I had my nursing home earlier. Okay. Yeah, it's been about 16 years for me. And in the beginning, mine was I lived at home with my parents. Oh, there it goes. And I was losing my ability to walk, so I was in a wheelchair most of the time. Well, actually, all the time. I lived in my wheelchair for about 10 years. And I went to care.com and found a really lovely person to help me during the day. I had coworkers. They helped me, so I was riding Metro Access to or from Akiki to GW, to or from work. And that lasted for about 7 years up until I had to get treated, which was in 2017. But I had a lot of friends, co-workers to help me, my family, my mom and dad, and my brothers and sisters, cousins. I mean, it takes a strong team to help you with all the things that you cannot do anymore. Um, I was in a power wheelchair that I was using my hands for about 10 years. And then I went to a chin control wheelchair, which I like better when it comes to um, me feeling safe in the chair. Hi, let me come back and wait. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm in the meeting. Let me I'm sorry.
No problem. I was just checking on you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the nurses, they park in a lot when you're in a nursing home. So where was I at? After being trained, coming to a nursing home, the level of care you would expect does not exist. Um, yeah, I had to hire my own help after being here for 3 months because you're not going to get that one-on-one attention like you're used to being with your loved ones at home. This has been 4 years, me being in a nursing home. And after COVID hit, after the first year, uh, I'm ready to go back home. So just like Carm- Carmelita, your son was in a nursing home, and then he knew that it wasn't right for him, and that you
Absolutely.
had to get your own care. I'm now
Absolutely.
in the EBD waiver, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been waiting for almost a year now
Mm-hmm.
to get out
Take a
of
long
nursing
time.
because the process does take a while. During
Yes.
COVID, speaking of COVID, people not going to work, but I have to go through spin down. You have to choose the agency. You have to
Mm-hmm.
choose. You have to choose your equipment. And you have to
Mm-hmm.
choose where you live, and it has to be in DC.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
um, well, DC gives more care as far as 24-hour care. It's hard to
Mm-hmm.
get out in Maryland and Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
I qualified and made it. I have
Mm-hmm.
24 hours here. And to piggyback on what you're saying, Mr. Riley, there is another program called the My Way program. And that allows you to
My way. Service my way. Mm-hmm.
get your own care
Mm-hmm.
instead of using the home health aides from the.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't done it yet, but I'm in the
Mm-hmm.
process now. Once I move to my apartment and I use the agency skill nurses, 24-hour care, but then I would use the agency's home health agency
Mm-hmm.
for 16 hours,
Okay.
but then I can
Mm-hmm.
choose health aid
Yeah. Yeah.
after doing
Yeah.
one, and then I can choose my own care, and then they
Mm-hmm.
would take the money that they would give the agency, and I can pay my own care. So I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
forward to that in the next couple of months.
Right.
Um, like my caregiver is here with me now. She's like my little sister now. She's
Oh.
a little joy. I can show you guys pictures of us hanging out in front. We sit around to the park. We do a lot together. But
Mm-hmm.
without here being in the nursing home, you would basically just sit. Sorry. you basically just sit in a room and watch TV all day.
Mhm.
You want to do if you're active, you want to be in the wheelchair and travel and do things.
Mhm.
So most nursing homes in DC, I know they don't have transportation for wheelchairs. They think they hire outsourced, but they don't really do a lot of it all the time. So
Mhm.
bingos on Fridays, and then they have like movie nights and little day parties and stuff throughout the week. But it'll be better if you lived at home.
Mr. Greenfield, I agree with that because I can know what my son experienced. If you don't mind me cutting in, at the time that he was in the facility, and the time we brought him home, it was a nightmare. We would still take him meals and stuff when we could, when he was here. When he moved to Las Vegas, he was in a facility there, thinking that he would get, the care and so forth. It was awful because I'm in a day, and it's like 2 to 3 times a week. He calling me, and I'm having to call up to the front desk, nurse's desk, because his light has been on because he needed to be suctioned or he needed to use the bathroom or whatever, and they were ignoring the calls or not coming. I know there were times, sometimes he may sit in the chair once they got him out the bed and put him in the chair. And of course, you dozing off and so forth, and you're dozing, your machine's going off, because of the settings for the alerts and so forth. And they would ignore. And he would call, can you please, because he could use his fingers only to use his phone to contact me, but that he could talk to me. Although his talk, I can understand it because I take the time to listen. And it's a little slow, you have to just wait and be patient to hear what he's saying. I would have to let them know. Can you please go down there and and see what he needs? And the times I would travel out there, because I would travel out there frequently enough, as much as I could. And if I didn't go, my sister or my daughter or somebody would go until we've had someone out there, a gentleman that really took to him and his wife, and they would come once a week when they could and would check on him and spend time there with him, which was a blessing to us. But we were ordering meals for him because he wouldn't eat the meals at the facility because of how they were prepared and things like that. And so we were constantly ordering meals and having them, delivered to him, and he would eat, he'd get it at lunchtime, and what he would order something for dinner, and then the next day he would eat the leftovers, and that's how we were doing. And so then the next time you order something fresh, so we ended up having to get him a refrigerator, small college size refrigerator, to go in the room, and then we loaded up with, because he likes salad, with stuff of salad. And it was so thankful enough that the CNA at the hospital, at the facility, would take the time to fix his salad or either take in a microwave, of course, and do like the bok choy or the broccoli or something like that he wanted, vegetable wise, or baked potato and things like that, because he had no eating restrictions, which was a blessing, and still doesn't. And we do things like that, but it was just so much. Or when we would go, we would get a hotel room to where we could prepare meals, and we would cook the meals and put them in containers. And they did allow us to put in the nursing unit into their freezer these meals to take out, and heat up when necessary, when he needed them. So it's been a journey, and I understand how you're saying that. And I know you're glad you want to get home because you have your own private. They wouldn't allow us there to have anybody private to come in and take care of him at the facility he was staying at. Although when we go, we would stay all day and until time. He's a night owl, so I can't say time for him to go to bed because that's impossible. And even now, I'm getting up to go to work. He's just going to bed. How you like that? So I know the night. Huh?
The nursing homes now, since COVID and now during this Delta pandemic, nursing staff CNAs are very short.
Yes, they are. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
DOH comes by. Of course, they have 4 staff, but when it's to the evening and the night, you have 3 nurses to a 40-unit floor, 2 CNAs on a 40-unit floor. So how much quality care are you going to give to all those?
They would make him wait. He would be the last one on the totem pole to get cleaned up, to be fed, because he required that time. So they would wait till they took care of everybody before they would even come to take care of him, because they know it would require them hours to sit there even to feed him, things like that, because he couldn't feed himself. He had to be fed. And he take his time to chew because you don't want to get choked.
Is it all right if I jump in? You guys, y'all bring up such good points about being in a facility, because it's hard to find good care even at home, much less a facility. But I wanted to mention 2 ideas that, and actually, Mr. Lancaster mentioned this. Within the ALS community, some of the folks here where I'm living in the Tidewater area have been able to find people who will come into the home to provide care that have worked with other ALS patients. So sometimes that sort of word of mouth and like Mr. Lancaster was saying, somebody that somebody else might know and be able to recommend is a really good way to have somebody come into your home and help you out, and give you that little bit of a break, but still keep your loved one in an environment that's more comfortable, and you have a little bit more oversight, direct oversight onto. But another idea that seems to be becoming much more popular and prevalent, which I think is a good kind of in between, is sort of in-home care facilities, where people kind of open up their home and will take 1 to 3 or 4 different patients. I have a neighbor who has Alzheimer's, and she's in somebody's home with 2 or 3 other ladies who have, dementia type things. And it's just much more family type environment, where I really believe the folks are much more taken care of. And of course, you want a place that you and your family and friends can come and go, at reasonable times to see, see your loved one whenever. I just wanted to mention those 2 ideas as like options for other folks. And I also need to, if I kind of wanted to address one of the questions that came up, I think from something I was saying in the chat about, it seems like a full-time job and it's hard in the early stages to wrap your head around that. And we're not trying to scare anybody off.
Right.
Because hopefully it will be a slow and gradual, process for everybody. And you can there is a lot of adjustment that comes to not only the ALS patient, but the people that love them the most. And, maybe we could spend a little bit of time talking about that in terms of how we each were able to kind of wrap our brains around it. And I know for my husband and I, it was a lot of, just being, I never liked the word accepting, because that I didn't want to accept anything that hadn't happened yet. And it's not easy to accept. We did kind of learn to let it go a little bit. And like for us, our faith came into play. We were able to surrender it a little bit, to God, and say, okay, what is it that you want us to learn from this? Or what is it from this that we can give and do for somebody else? So part of it is just being able to find a way to still make sure you have meaning and purpose while you're still acknowledging the realities of what might be happening, and to try to plan in advance for the things that you might have to deal with. For example, the progression of being able to walk, then now you're starting to stumble. Well, try to be proactive and help your loved one say, hey, let me start using a wheelchair, because the last thing I want to do is fall and break something, or, create some other issue I've got to deal with. And just sort of, I couldn't find that I could do all the research at once and figure out all the things that might happen, but we kind of looked a few steps ahead and said, okay, what's the next thing we might need to address? And let's try to address it before we get there. And I think the part of the reason it becomes a full-time job is eventually it's not going to be overly safe for your loved one to be at home by themselves. And so even though you're not 24/7 doing stuff for them, you need to have somebody there, because they either can't pick up the phone to call for help, or they, can't get to the bathroom fast enough, or whatever it is. So for us, it was a gradual process where I just got so that I couldn't even leave the home for an hour to do grocery shopping. So that was another thing that we had folks from church do, is, some basic grocery shopping once a month or whatever. So I don't know if I'm addressing that particular concern that was raised, but I did want to spend a little bit of time talking about that and seeing what other questions might be prompted.
Yeah. And thank you so much, AJ, for bringing that question up. But you actually mentioned a very good point about when you noticed your husband was having difficulty walking, maybe mentioning a walker. And that leads into a next question that I just received about a patient, let's say, who's negative and frustrated by the progression of the disease, and they're not open to doing what is best for them. How would you have that conversation with the patient or a loved one? Or what was your guys' experience like?
It's difficult. When we were in Florida, after a couple of years, my wife started stumbling and she would fall. And I said to her, you need to use a cane. Vanity. And then gradually, the last time she fell, she started using the cane. And then eventually she had to go to a walker. And after a couple of years, she went to a wheelchair. But that's a hard conversation. And you, as a caregiver, have to realize, what's going to happen and what you are going to go through. Like even now, my wife is in a wheelchair. She's independent a lot, but she can't go to the bathroom by herself. I have to help her. She can't get dressed. I have to help her. She can't shower without my help. Things like that. But I guess our faith will, helped us tremendously. We would say, well, God, this is what you gave us, and you don't give us more than what we can support or whatever. We just, what do you think? Yeah, what you can handle. And we had been married so long that we were used to each other, and we could say things and talk, and but it's kind of hard. When she was first diagnosed, we had to drive from Jacksonville, Florida, back to our home in Palm Coast, which was about an hour drive, and we had to stop because we were both crying. It is hard, and it's a gradual thing. You have to take care or hold of it and say, this is not what we wanted. This is not what we thought we would be doing in our later years, but this is what we got. And you got to deal with what you got, Yeah, before she was diagnosed, my wife would go around to and help people, and she was a caregiver, helping people, and just free of charge. She would go and pray with them and whatever help that. One thing we learned though, it wasn't, we didn't get that in return, but she didn't mind. She didn't mind. She said she doesn't agree with it, but who came in and helped her in Florida? He said God sends whoever he wants to send. She said she had people come in and help her and pray with her, but it wasn't a lot. But you deal with it. You have to say, this is not what we expected. This is not what we wanted. And she and I, when we lived in Florida, we were doing a lot of travel. And we had a trip coming up to China. but she said, I can't walk that far. So I canceled it instead of going out and renting a wheelchair and taking it with me. I wish we had, but in hindsight, but I canceled it. So, I mean, we did go to Hawaii. And let me put, when she was first diagnosed, and I asked the physicians at Mayo what medicine or whatever, they had for it. And they said, well, we have this one, and it's very expensive, and it may extend her life 6 months. But that was it. So I told them that I was going to go to alternative care. So I went on the website and looked for Florida physicians who did alternative care. And I went to one in Jacksonville, and he in turn referred us to a clinic up in New Jersey. Was it New Jersey? In New Jersey. Or in Pennsylvania, I'm sorry. And they gave her things like creation and et cetera, where they, and I don't know whether that, is the reason why she's lasted all these years. She said God had a plan and a reason, but I think God said, she said her assignment is not up.
I agree.
But I think that the alternative medicine did help. Unfortunately, that clinic has gone out of business now. But we would come from Florida, drive from Florida to Pennsylvania, and and get that treatment. And then they showed me how to do it at home. So we would drive back to Florida, and I would get the medicine. Unfortunately, the medicine was not FDA approved, so it came from Germany. It was very expensive. It was, I think, when we stopped using it, it was like $1,700 a month. So we ended up going through our savings and, going through everything until the point we got to a point where we could no longer afford it. But we stopped, and when we stopped, then her condition, started going downhill. So it did help. It did help. But,
So, Mr. Lancaster, this actually leads to another question. Like you mentioned, as the disease progresses, I'm sure the needs also change. And there are certain things that, as a caregiver and a loved one, you can do, but there are certain things that you cannot help with. For example, when the patient has to get on a feeding tube or a trach. What did caregiving look like for you guys at that time when, let's say, an RN had to be included in the plan? Both AJ and Mr. Lancaster, Riley, if you guys want to give your insight on that.
Well, fortunate for us, she's not on the trach or on feeding tube. So we've not experienced that. And she can eat. Oh Lord, can she eat? I mean, that has not diminished.
I can jump in on that a little bit, too. My husband did have a feeding tube, and this kind of ties in a little bit to how do you help somebody who doesn't want to do what is actually going to be best for them. And in my husband's case, first of all, we kind of tried to stay in it together, meaning we tried to always talk about things, and I always tried to respect his thoughts on it because he was the one going through it. We got really good advice early on, which was, instead of focusing on all the things you can no longer do, focus on the things you still can do, and the gifts that you do still have. Somehow he was able to put his mindset in that direction, which I know helped him greatly. And another thing, just on the day-to-day, I can only imagine how frustrating it is to gradually not be able to do things that everybody should be able to do easily, like pick a fork up and bring it to your mouth or whatever it is. And so what Jeff and I tried to do is, where he really couldn't or shouldn't be doing something, I tried to really, really encourage him not to, but where he really could do some things, I let him as best we could maintain the control in those areas. Again, I don't know if that actually is part of what helped, but he somehow was able to have a phenomenal attitude through the whole thing. And I think just being respectful of how difficult it is for them. And so that decision to get the feeding tube, initially he's like, nope, not doing a trach, not doing a feeding tube. Went to a support group meeting. One of his buddies had just gotten his feeding tube and was like, hey, anybody want to see it? And he lifts his shirt up and shows everybody his feeding tube. That moment on, it was no longer as scary for my husband. So he's like, well, yeah, feeding tube. I could do a feeding tube. So making the decision is the first hard step. And then finding people who can help you learn how to do the things is the next big step. You are able to do those things yourself, but finding someone qualified who can help teach you how to do them. We were fortunate. We had a neighbor who was a former, retired GI nurse. And so again, it's like, and that was from our network of Share the Care is how we found out about her. So if I'm going to give one piece of advice that is like the hardest thing in the world to do, and that is to just let yourself be helped, because I don't like to think I need help for anything, but I needed a lot of help during that time. And I think we did as well as we did because we somehow were able to accept that help. And the people who end up helping get a lot out of it as well. So I'll stop there.
And AJ, you made a good point too when you said don't let the decisions made be your decision only. It's good to let them weigh in on, let them talk about, because it's their body, and they're in that body. And sometimes we don't understand, even as a family member or a caregiver, however. So it's good to let them have a say so. Then you compromise it. If you think it needs compromise on, you let it go. Let them decide how they want to do it. And that's all we have to do with him. Because like I said, nothing wrong with his mind. And he can speak for himself. It's kind of slurred or whatever, slow, but it's there. He can talk. And he knows how, like I said, tell you how to take care of him. And so therefore let them make the decisions. And even when it comes down to eating and things, he doesn't have a feeding tube, which I'm grateful, thank the Lord for that. But we had to make him cut back on dairy because he's a dairy problems, and that causes you to have to be suctioned more when you have a trach, in your throat. So you have to be very mindful of that. Your dairy is very important because of the suctioning and so forth. Don't eat a whole lot of dairy. If you cut dairy out totally, that will help with the mucus buildup and so forth. But like I said, I'm gonna shut up too. The final decision is both of you all, whoever's taking care of the individual, let you all both decide, or let them decide, since they are in a mental capacity where they can decide things for themselves. Don't always think because you're caring for them that always has to be your way and your decision, and that's not good.
When it comes to my care, they've asked me, but I'm always in charge of my care. When it comes to anyone taking care of me, I'll let them know exactly how to do it to a T. Really sad at me right now. But yeah, as far as trach care and cleaning the pig tube, we learned from really good respiratory therapists when I first got to the nursing home. And they were really good at teaching your family, your caregivers, your loved ones, your friends, if they want to learn how. At first, my family did not want to suction. Tetrafather, and they would let the respiratory therapists do it. But after a couple of months, and they see how much I needed it, and after I got used to doing it and telling them how to do it, I would immediately say, hey, yeah, I can teach y'all how to do it. Just do it for me, please. But when it comes to the care, yeah, a lot of it is taught by the care that you would get if you got moved. Well, actually, the care that you would get when you first get trach. Hospitals normally don't teach you everything when you leave, especially the peg tube, how to clean it and change it, and the trach when you have to change the intercannula and go around and clean the gauze and changing the neck band. when you get through the nursing home, or even if you go home, you would still get a skilled nurse and a respiratory therapist will come by to change and check the ventilator and also do trait cleaning and actually teach you when you're at home. So, yeah. But when it comes to care, yeah, you have to definitely listen to the patient.
Thank you so much, Wilbur. I mean, you're on point with that. And then our very last question, and I want to say might be a very important one as well. From all of your experience, what were the costs associated with caregiving that patients and caregivers used, and how did you cover that cost?
I'll speak. Mine initially was straight out the pocket for me because before I was able to get cleared with the EPD waiver program that we currently have, I had to pay for it. And from January to March, I paid out of pocket was $13,000. And then after that, in March, April, I was blessed enough to get a grant from the Brigance Brigade for $5,000, which that helped with, because I had someone come in that was helping me. It wasn't just family. Another lady that was a CNA. And I heard Mr. Lancaster some of $13 an hour. Oh, no, sir. How about I had to pay $18 an hour, and that added up, because they didn't just want to come in for 4 or 5 hours; they wanted to do 8 hours. So that 8 hours a day, paying that individual to cover that shift, it really was a lot. I had to end up taking out a loan until the EPD waiver kicked in, and also Wilbur mentioned about Mr. Greenfield mentioned about Service My Way. I'm still waiting for Service My Way. So he said it takes it's a process and it takes some time. He's correct. I'm still waiting for Service My Way because of family members that have agreed to help when there's no coverage. I feel they need to be compensated, although one of them said they don't want anything. Don't be afraid. I saw the message. I mean, I'm easier said than done. There are programs, hopefully someone through the organization can sign you up with the program, and there are people that have grants that you can get to help defray some of the costs. But unfortunately, mine was a little late down the line. And then finally, when the EPD waiver program came in through Medicaid and Medicare, because he'd already had Medicare, it's been a blessing as far as having me to get a home health care agency to cover the rest of the cost of Medicaid. The health care ain't covering the cost. Medicaid, Medicare covering the cost, and they're just providing the service. When I have to don't have a coverage and need somebody to come so I can leave out the house to do something, I still have to pay that out the pocket. And which is that's something to be prepared for, because it happens like that. Now, hopefully that you won't have to have that happen to you, that yours will kick in time. Even with Mr. Lancaster talking about the long-term care, eventually that long-term care, it'll be gone, and then you're still coming out the pocket. So one way or another, it's going to happen to where you will have to come out the pocket some, but hopefully not as much as we all have had thus far, that you'll get the need, the grants or something that you need to accommodate your loved one.
I'd like to speak on that. If the person with ALS is a veteran, run quick to VA. VA has all kinds of programs for veterans. They will come in and modify your house free of charge. They will give them all kinds of equipment. They will buy them a car, not a car, but a handicap van. They will change that van out every 2 years. They will give you everything if you are a veteran. Unfortunately, my wife's not a veteran. I am, but she's not. But we paid out of pocket And then we moved back here, we found out that the ALS Society will give you a lot of the equipment. You know, if you need, you know, the walkers, the chairs, whatever you need, ALS usually has that in their loan closet. I'm a little bit different. We have, you know, we have Medicare, but we can't use it because I'm using TRICARE because I'm retired military, and we use Johns Hopkins. So Johns Hopkins only takes TRICARE, so we can't use Medicare at all. Once our, well, prior to the money running out for long-term care, then I need to go back and start researching to see what we can get to help supplement what I have to put out. You know, and I can say right now, I'm doing it myself, it's no problem, but I'm 81 years old. I don't know how much longer I'll be able to do this on myself. So I'm going to have to use help. And like I told my daughter, you're gonna have to retire and come help, you know. But and my sons, they are a little queasy of, you know, showering their mother and taking her to the bathroom. They don't want any parts of that. They'll do everything else, but they don't want to take care of the personal care. But you know, you got to do what you got to do. You know, for instance, my mother's here, lives with us, but she's 101 years old. You know, and as far as helping my wife, she's absolutely no help at all. I mean, she can't lift her, she can't understand her most of the time. So she's no help at all. So, and then fortunately, my mother can do for herself. I mean, she can get up and you know, and dress and take her own baths and fix her breakfast. I don't let her cook anything else but breakfast, but you know, she can take care of herself pretty much, but she can't help me with my wife at all. But the cost is something you have to look at. You have to look at, you know, eventually people are going to have to use dependents. You know, can you get money for dependents? Because that starts eating into your pocketbook a little bit. I guess that's about all we need because the wheelchair was given to us, and every 5 years they give us a new wheelchair. What else do we need? Other than the depends, we don't use anything else. Well, the bed pads and all that, but I bought those. So I generally, you know, buy a lot of things, but it's not a lot of money now. When I was purchasing the medicine, then, you know, it got expensive, but you know, the everyday medicine is taken care of by TRICARE, so it's not a lot of money. Now, one thing I want to caution everyone, as your loved one or you start, you know, going downhill, try to get the medical equipment in advance. Because if you wait until you need a wheelchair to start putting in for it, it's going to take you at least 6 months to get it. You know, if you're lucky. If you're unlucky, it's going to be 9 months. So when you see that happening, even though you don't need it right now, get it. And the same thing with things like a Hoyer lift. If you got a lift for patient, you know, ask the ALS Society to, you know, to lend you a Hoyer lift out of their loan closet. Same thing with the bed. You know, they have a lot of things that you can get, and it's free. You know, so, but don't wait till the last minute because
I completely agree with you on that, Mr. Lancaster. That's something whenever we have an intro call with majority of our families, that's the first thing we tell them. It's an expensive disease.
yes.
And if there's anything that you're looking for, we always recommend reaching out to us first, take a look in our loan closet. And if we have it, we can ship it your way and you're more than welcome to keep it and use it for however long you need it.
And for the female caregivers, ask the ALS for a Koya lift.
Yep.
Because eventually you're going to hurt your back trying to lift a patient up, a male patient. You
Yeah.
know, or even males lifting females. As you get older, you lose strength.
That's
So
true.
you need help. I'm still at the point where I can help her transfer from the bed to a bedside toilet. You know, I can do those things, but eventually I'm not going to be able to do it. And I
Yeah.
know that.
That's true. I do want to thank you all today for joining us and also our families that are attending. I hope you guys found this useful and as a learning opportunity. And obviously, thank you to our families as well for sharing your experience, but also informing our new families about what to expect as the disease progresses. So before we do sign off, I do want to tell our families that we have an AT week coming up. That's the Assistive Technology Week. That's starting next week, Monday. And each day we're going to have a therapist and a different representative talk about different equipment, communication devices, and it's going to be scheduled for 11 a.m. Monday. And then there's going to be a replay of the video at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. We will be sending out an email with the login information and the join-in link, as well as if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. So we'll make sure those questions are discussed. But as always, if you guys have any questions, any comments, or even about our chapter services, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. So I want to thank you all for joining us today, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.
You too now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Good
Bye-bye.
seeing everybody and meeting everybody.
Okay. See
Nice
you
to meet
all.
you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.